Hello, ghouls and ghoulies. Welcome to Scary and Bizarre Short Stories. I'm your host, Larry Lee Roten. This story is a devilish tale. I've often wondered about witches and the things that go bump in the night. However, if I ever encounter one, I hope it's a good witch. The wicked ones really scare me. I hope you enjoy this tale. It's called The Witch. The old woman had planted her seeds years earlier. Now, the apple orchard she cared for produced a delicious harvest. She would reap the fruits and sell them to her neighbors. Her life's dream to own an orchard had come to fulfillment. Doris Farmer lived in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. Things were looking up for the widow. She was independent, and now, with her apple orchard, Doris was becoming self sufficient. However, all was not well in Salem, and the inhabitants of the small town believed dark magic brought on by witches had infected them. The two magistrates, Jonathan Corwin and John Hawthorne, swore to rid their community of all witches. In July of 1692, Doris was accused of being a witch. 3 weeks later, she was hanged on Gallows Hill. Corwin and Hawthorne took her land, house, and her apple orchard. They distributed her wealth among their families. Doris didn't whimper or cry. She held her head high and denied being a witch. Moments before her death, she was asked if she had any last words. She finally spoke. "You are hanging an innocent woman. I am no more of a witch than any of you. All you want is my home, my land, and my apple orchard. You are my accusers, judges, and executioners. However, I promise you that if you do this cruel deed, it will destroy you and your family and your world." Moments later, they hung Doris. The next day, the body of Doris Farmer was buried in an unmarked grave. The magistrates warned if anyone marked the grave, there would be severe consequences. It was forbidden. She was a witch and deserved no remembrance. A week later, Doris was all but forgotten, or so they thought. Jonathan Corwin awoke to a beautiful day. As he went to wake his family, he was shocked to find his three young daughters dead in their beds. All three had a noose around their necks. Written on the wall in what appeared to be blood were the words, "You hanged an innocent woman." Jonathan stared in horror at his children. They were innocent, just babies. How could anyone be so mean and cruel? It was a dreadful sight. A loud knock came on Corwin's door. Bewildered and shocked, Jonathan opened his door. John Hawthorne stood on his stoop. "Both of my daughters are dead," he cried as he fell on his knees. "Killed by Doris Farmer. I found them in their beds this morning." The town was in an uproar. The deaths were considered a curse invoked by other witches. The following evening, Jonathan came home and found his wife dead in her kitchen. It appeared she had been beaten to death. Written on the wall in blood were the words, "You killed the innocent." Once more, the town was in panic. They were sure the ghost of Doris Farmer was back and taking her revenge on her prosecutors and tormentors. That same day, the man who pushed the ladder from beneath Doris was found in his barn hanging by a rope. His wife was laying beneath him with a pitchfork driven through her body. Death was descending on Salem, and it appeared there was no stopping it. That night, John Hawthorne and his wife sat mourning the deaths of their daughters. His wife rose and went to the well. She never returned. Later, she was pulled from the dark waters. Her hands were tied and her pockets filled with rocks. She had a large stone tied around her neck. It had a sign, "Death of the Innocent." John went to warn Jonathan of his wife's death. His family was gone, and he was alone. Undoubtedly, the ghost of Doris Farmer had ruined his life, so maybe now she would return to her grave and leave him in peace. However, that didn't happen. As he arrived at Jonathan's house, he saw his longtime friend hanging by his neck in a tree. There was a sign around his neck. "I'm coming for you next, John." John was beside himself. He hurried back to his house, which he found burning. He watched as his belongings became engulfed in flames. The following day, John was nowhere to be found. Villagers searched for their magistrate and finally found him lying on Doris Farmer's unmarked grave. He was crying, telling the people who found him how devastated he was. "I've lost my kids, wife, and my home, and last night I lost my best friend. I have nothing left." The townspeople felt sorry for the man. They took him in and cared for him. You see, John Hawthorne didn't lose everything he had. He still had the properties he managed to steal from the so-called witches that he and Jonathan had murdered. He still had Doris's farm and her orchard. However, overnight, Doris's apples began to decay and rot. Her once quaint house collapsed and was damaged beyond repair. A friend brought John to his home, insisting he would be safe there. "You can rest here until you gain your strength. Then we'll rebuild your home." Many fires erupted in the small town that day, destroying everything in its path. The inhabitants of Salem fought the fires, trying relentlessly to save their homes and farms. It was useless. A visitor walked into the room where John was recovering. John glanced at the man but didn't recognize him. This man didn't live in Salem. He was a stranger. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" John asked. The man laughed. "I'm here to take something from you." "Doris Farmer has taken everything from me. I have nothing left." John began to weep. "Oh, but you do. You have your life," the man said. John started shaking. "Why are you tormenting me? I've only done what I thought was right. What do you want from me?" "You killed many innocent people. Your greed and crimes against humanity haven't gone unseen." His eyes flashed red, and he rubbed his long fingers against his face. John tried to move, but found himself unable to do so. "Please don't kill me." The man laughed. "Doris told you you were hanging an innocent woman. She was no more of a witch than any of you. All you wanted was her home, land, and apple orchard. You were her accusers, judges, and executioners. However, she promised you that if you did this cruel deed, it would destroy you, your family, and your world, and now it has." "Did you kill my family?" John asked. "Yes," the man said. "And before I'm done, I'll kill everyone in Salem." "You're the devil!" John screamed. "Yes," the man said. "Yes, I am." I hope you enjoyed this scary and bizarre short story. After writing this witchy story, I'm thinking that greed comes at a terrible price. I certainly don't want to be greedy. So if you like, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I certainly don't want to be greedy and expect it. As always, thank you for visiting my channel.